particularly the quarterback model to community development has received renewed attention of late, and increasingly housing and community development organizations are looking to this type of approach to address some of the complex challenges facing their communities amidst this environment of shrinking resources. So we at NeighborWorks have supported a number of our network organizations in implementing these types of approaches, which has given us some insights on the successes and challenges that organizations that play this quarterback or convening or lead agency role in these collaborative models face. But working with Natalie on this project has given us a chance to test some of those assumptions. We think that housing and community development organizations have some unique skills and perspectives that really position them to succeed in this role. But we asked Natalie to sort of dig into that, to do some case study profiles in order to find out what are the unique skills that these types of organizations bring, and what are the challenges and opportunities they face. Her presentation, I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to walk us through a little bit more background on the community quarterback, the comprehensive community development model. She's going to walk through a few case studies she's done, and then share some findings and reflections from the research. And then I think we're allotting some time for a question and answer, so it would be great to hear others' reactions, questions, observations based on the research. So with that, I think I will just turn it over to Natalie.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction, Paul. One quick question just before we start. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, I think we can.
Okay, great. So I'm really delighted to be here today and to have the opportunity to present to you some of my findings and the research that I did this summer. So as Paul mentioned, I spent the I'm writing a report on the role of the quarterback organization in comprehensive development. And since most of you are already familiar with comprehensive community development, I'm going to jump right ahead to describing the role of the quarterback. So the concept of the quarterback organization...
Natalie, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you share your screen or show your screen so we can see your PowerPoint?
Okay, great. Sorry. There.
That's okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So starting again. Concept of the quarterback organization, or a community quarterback, was coined in 2000 in the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank book called Investing in What Works for America's Communities. In the book, an article by Dave Erickson, Ian Galloway, and Naomi Citron presented the idea of having a lead agency to address some of the issues related to complex partnership-driven initiatives, such as the organizing of funds from different sectors, coordinating between partners and programs, and liaising with organizations and people outside of the initiative. So to do this work, they presented the idea of having a lead agency which would take the form of an individual, intermediary, organizations, or governance body that would act as a leader and guide the initiative by collectively articulating a vision, interventions, marshaling resources, establishing shared measurement practices, and also engaging community and people working at the local, state, and federal level. And it's also worth mentioning that collective impact, which is a movement that's to bring together people from different sectors to tackle one issue, and shares a lot of similarities with comprehensive community development, has a similar model they term the backbone organization. So practitioners and advocates of comprehensive community development have acknowledged the need for leadership since the Comprehensive Community Initiative came about in the 1980s and the 1990s, learning what worked and what didn't work through trial and error. So what the quarterback and backbone literature allows us to do now is to open up a space to think about what this role brings to comprehensive community development and how it might differ from other traditional leadership positions. So if you think back on the list of tasks that was listed in the previous slide, it suggests that the quarterback is indeed very different from the traditional leader, acting much more as a facilitator than someone exercising control in a top-down manner. And this, in part, is due to the nature of comprehensive community development initiatives, which are very complex and also rarely static. In the management literature, under the rubric of complex systems leadership, researchers have tried to carve out a role for a leader in such initiatives like comprehensive community development and a softer management approach of collaboration, team building, and also facilitating work rather than controlling or even trying to guide it too much. So, and this model too is being currently tested by the City Foundation, partners in progress in Crosssector. So what I set about to do this summer was to use the opening in this literature to see what the backing or backbone experience had been like for housing and community development organizations in order to understand how they perform in this role and also the perspectives and experiences. So I looked at 3 case studies, one in Chelsea, Massachusetts, the TriState development in the Midwest, the Sustainable Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. And I picked these 3 case studies because they were all led in one way or another by a housing community development organization that was also part of the NeighborWorks network of member organizations. Together as a group, they reflected a variety of characteristics, more regional scale of the TriState Development Summit, down to the more neighborhood-focused initiative of Sustainable Little Tokyo. They had 3 different missions focusing on financial security, regional economic development, and sustainability defined broadly. And finally, they were from different parts of the country and included a rural case study alongside 2 more urban ones. So,
Natalie, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but can you, we're not seeing your slides advance, so can you just try really quick to click through to where you are? And if, yeah, if that doesn't work, I'll pull up your presentation and share it. Perfect. So we see Connect, a financial resource center. Is that where we should be at?
Becca? Hello?
Are you there?
Hi, sorry, I'm having trouble with it keeps dropping the phone call and I guess shutting down my webinar.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't I pull up your presentation and share it on my screen, and you can just tell me when to advance, and we'll see if that will solve the problem.
Okay. Does it work now, or?
We can see that, yes. So we just saw the second bullet.
Okay, great. Can I keep doing it now, and we'll see if it might work this time?
Sure.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, and thank you so much for your patience. So the first case study is Connect, which is a financial resource center in Chelsea, Massachusetts, where they work to improve the economic security of their clients by bundling financial, educational, housing, and workforce services. It was founded in 2012 by the Neighborhood Developers, which is a community development corporation in Chelsea, Massachusetts, which is a dense working class and immigrant community just north of Boston. And in terms of the organizational structure of Connect, on the bottom here you have the core Connect staff, which includes staff members from the 6 participating organizations in the initiative, and they come to Connect and provide services to the clients. And they meet weekly with the Connect director, data manager, and also the financial coaches to talk about the provision of services. At the top you have the managing partners, which consists of the executive director of the 6 participating organizations, and they discuss high-level strategy. And in the middle is the neighborhood developers, which is the operational partner and works both as a service provider and also as a backbone organization in the initiative, which is the term that they use to represent themselves. And as the backbone organization, they both founded the initiative, bringing together partners and also an advisory committee and doing the initial grant writing. And they also today oversee the initiative's finances, staff, facility, and data system. and they're mostly funding their work as the backbone organization through revenue earned in the real estate development arm. The second case study is from a different part of the country. It's the TriState Development Summit, which covers 35 counties in Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. It was founded in 1996 to encourage regional economic development in the area through transportation, housing, connectivity, and tourism. The main work includes representing private, public, and community interests at hearings and to congressional delegations to lobby for things like the building of a network of highways in the area. And in terms of the organization here, you have 3 committees that focus on housing, transportation, connectivity, and tourism. They report to the steering committee, who then organize annual summits where people come together to discuss the work of the different committees and also other opportunities and challenges in the area. And the Housing Committee was formed in 2005 by the Northeast Community Action Corporation and also the Southeast Iowa Regional Planning and Two Rivers of public officials in Quincy, Illinois. And it was formed in order to highlight the important place that housing plays in terms of economic development. And since then, the Housing Committee has grown to include members from local government and also economic development groups. And in the bottom, you can see that they're currently collaborating with the federal prison system and the Carpenters Union to create a workforce development program in a prison in Iowa. So the Northeastern Community Action Corporation, which is based in Bowling Green, Missouri, in the role of the lead agency, it is responsible for executing the Tri-State Housing Summits, which are yearly conferences with housing and committee members. It also meets with these housing committee members on a quarterly basis throughout the year and provides them with technical assistance. And they also played an important role in helping the Tri-State Summit receive the U.S. Department of Agriculture Great Region designation, which helps them with the point system and applying for funding from the USDA. And the final case study is Sustainable Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. It was an initiative that was started in 2013 to help guide development in the neighborhood in a way that is sustainable environmentally, culturally, and economically in response to the construction of a subway stop in Little Tokyo, which will open in 2020. 15 organizations are currently part of this initiative, but there's a core team of the Little Tokyo Service Center, which is a community development corporation in the area, the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center, and also the Little Tokyo Community Council. And it's also a Partners in Progress project. So in terms of the structure here, it also has 3 committees that look at real estate, community outreach, and arts and culture. These committees set short-term and long-term goals, and they report to the cabinet that does higher level strategizing around the initiative, and the steering committee, who look to see whether or not the work of the 3 different committees are integrated. There are also quarterly community forums that bring in more public input into the project. And also the resource partners in this initiative are very involved. They sit both on the individual committees and also on the steering committee. So the Little Tokyo Service Center helped found Sustainable Little Tokyo, and it's part of every layer of the initiative's governance structure, sitting both on the Built Environment Committee, the steering committee, and also the cabinet. However, they hesitate to call themselves a quarterback organization because they see themselves more as enablers rather than leaders, and this is reflected in the fact that they share resources such as the Partners in Progress grants, but nevertheless they play a very critical role because of their knowledge of and experience working in real estate and planning in Los Angeles. So this last third part, we'll look at the case studies and also the general research to see what housing and community development organizations can gain from being part of these initiatives, what they can bring to the role of the quarterback or the backbone organization, and also what some of the challenges have been. A big incentive for housing and community development organizations to engage in comprehensive community development is simply the fact that It helps them make a bigger impact in their community and enables them to provide a greater range of services to their residents. All three organizations saw their respective initiatives as extensions of their work and as a means of better serving their mission. This was especially true for the TriState Summit and Housing Committee, where despite a lack of funding, people travel great distances to meet because they believe that what's good for the region is ultimately also good for their organizations. Cross-sector partnerships also help pool resources from a variety of sectors. In the last three initiatives, we saw environmental groups being involved, cultural institutions, workforce development organizations. And they also provide an opportunity for housing organizations to demonstrate how critical housing is to the strategies of other fields, such as economic development in the case of the Tri-State Development Summit, or economic stability in the case of Connect. And this could potentially help secure more funding and broader political support for housing. So although there were no case studies looking at health, this is a growing field that housing should get involved with and could have a huge impact in. There's a lot of good research, especially on the Center for Housing Policy website, on the intersections between housing and other fields, showing how, for example, affordable, stable, and high-quality housing can increase health by making available more resources to pay for health care and limiting exposure to environmental toxins. And finally, successful quarterbacks have developed the communication and management infrastructure to take on more quarterbacking roles, thus opening up new avenues for these organizations. The Neighborhood Developers, for example, was invited by the City of Chelsea to lead Chelsea Thrives, which is the Boston Federal Reserve project that is bringing together 30 partners in the city to help stabilize a highly transient and low-income corridor. There are a number of skills, perspectives, and experiences that housing and community development organization can bring to the role of the quarterback, and that were highlighted by the three initiatives that I looked at. The first is an understanding of the complex development deals that happen both in urban and rural areas, and also previous experience navigating the political and planning landscape, which they have developed and refined through their experience in building affordable housing. Secondly, many housing and community development organizations are rooted in their community, in part because of the physical investments that they've made there, but also because they're committed to making residents active agents of change. The Neighborhood Developers, for example, plays an active role in building social capital in Revere and Chelsea, Massachusetts by employing a neighbor circles engagement model. And the Northeastern Community Action Corporation includes broad representation on its board, including public, private sector, and low-income representatives from every county that it serves. And then finally, all three of the initiatives that I looked at involved housing and community development intermediaries in their work, such as NeighborWorks, LISC, and Enterprise, which brought more resources, support, and also technical assistance to the initiatives. But just like comprehensive community development is challenging, the role of the quarterback and backbone also comes with its own set of challenges. Some challenges are extensions of the comprehensive community development challenges that these quarterbacks and backbone organizations address, such as the issue of working in close collaboration with organizations outside one's field. With very different organizations sending staff to one location, the Neighborhood Developers had to very consciously and actively build a connect culture that resolved staff tensions and also brought the staff closer together. And likewise, dealing with external partners has also proven difficult. Sustainable Little Tokyo and the Tri-State Development Summit both highlight the difficulty of working on projects that cross boundaries, both geographical in terms of fields, in a context where those boundaries are very much in place and enforced. Then there are the challenges that are specific to the quarterback and the backbone organization. So all three organizations highlighted the lack of long-term flexible funding that is available for staffing and that is also commensurate with the tasks of the quarterback or the backbone organization. This has a potential of dividing the attention of the very organizations that are supposed to help other organizations stay on track. And one of the lead agencies solved this issue by making the initiative part of the work plan of its staff. Interviewees also highlighted the necessity of having a strong team in order to share responsibility and take initiative on different parts of the project. Often this required the quarterback or the backbone organization to provide substantial amounts of informal and formal technical assistance and also sharing resources with partner organizations. It is also clear that individual leadership plays a role in lead agencies, but because of staff turnover, initiatives should avoid placing too much emphasis on any single person in an organization. One of the initiatives suffered a blow when a critical staff member of the lead agency left and had to rebuild the knowledge and experience that he took with him. This initiative has since then developed a more open way of sharing information and knowledge between all members. And perhaps the biggest challenge for leading agencies is having to walk a fine line between being a good manager and a good collaborator, providing enough guidance without being too controlling. And although there is no silver bullet to this challenge, establishing open and transparent communication and governance infrastructures is key. In Sustainable Little Tokyo Service Center and its partner organizations decided to base the initiative and its project manager in the Little Tokyo Community Council, which as a community-driven space ensures greater representation in decisions that affect the neighborhood. So to conclude, in thinking on how to best support the work of the lead agency, a policymaker, a funder, or an intermediary should consider three things. First, the context of initiative, the civic infrastructure of a neighborhood, and also existing relationships between organizations. This will give clues in terms of the type of responsibilities and desired characteristics of the lead agency. For example, in areas where organizations are weak or do not trust one another, more emphasis will have to be placed on forming relationships and strengthening up organizations and individuals that are there but might not be strong yet. And likewise, the role of the quarterback changes over time, and responsibilities often get passed around different organizations, which suggests that in addition to supporting the lead agency, the entire ecosystem of partners has to also be supported. And finally, people seeking to support lead agencies should analyze the trade-offs between building up the capabilities of weak organizations or funding strong ones that might be more effective at putting the funding to work in the communities. Interviewees emphasized having strong agencies with support structures at the lead, but in a world of limited resources, this might leave behind communities and organizations that, because of their weaker infrastructure, have as much of a need of community quarterback like the neighborhood developers, the Northeast Community Action Corporation, or the Little Tokyo Service Center. So that was my presentation, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Just as a reminder, do feel free to send us questions using the chat box. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I did have a couple myself. Natalie, I was wondering, in your looking at these 3 case studies and probably some of your more extensive research, what kind of drove organizations or communities to put a quarterback model in place? Does it typically start out as like a specific project, or like a neighborhood focus, a specific neighborhood focus? Kind of what drives that creation?
Right. So whether or not there is intentionality about having a quarterback and who should take on that role and how that varies between different initiatives?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So a lot of the initiatives that I've looked at here have been initiatives that the quarterback is one of the agencies that helped found the initiative. So that's kind of how it started, and I think, you know, over time as they brought in more partners and discussed the organization of the initiatives, there was a decision to keep someone as a lead agency. And I think in part, for example, in the neighborhood developers case, in the MOUs, their role is defined as the operational partner. And I think in part that was because of both, they were one of the organizations that was the most neighborhood-based out of all of the 6 organizations that are a part, and they were committed to making sure that the initiative would go on in the future, and also offered up space in their own office. And then in other cases, such as the TriState Housing Committee, that was really, you know, it was spearheaded by the Northeastern Community Action Corporation with 2 other organizations. And the Northeastern Community Action Corporation remains the lead agency in part because of its strength. So it's, you know, a lot of the initiatives that I looked at, the quarterback agencies was the quarterback agency to begin with, and it would be interesting to see if there were ones where it might have started off different, and then over time someone got that designation as part of the project.
Gotcha. No, that's helpful. So I was also curious, and you touched on this a little bit, but kind of the strength of these case studies and what they're able to do is the wide range of players they bring in, different organizations who either are not just housing focused, but workforce development or transportation. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's hard to coordinate multiple partners or keep that relationship robust as time passes. So I was just curious about how maybe in the case studies they were able to keep those relationships functional and working well, despite the complexity of bringing all those different players to the table.
Right. I do think it depends on 2 aspects. One was having a clear understanding from the get-go what each organization brings to the table and what they're expected to do. So 2 of the different initiatives had something like an MOU where they defined different roles, and that was something that everyone was committed to. But I think, so that's one way of dealing with it. And I think another way is just really having organizations that are part of the initiative feel like they have ownership over that initiative, and that in a way kind of links to the role of the quarterback as someone that both knows when to step up and when to step down. So in Connect, there is talk about creating a pathways to finance jobs, and that's something that is being led not by the neighborhood developers, but another part of the organization. So it's really having shared goals that are shared by everyone in the group, and an understanding of the different responsibilities, but also being able to accommodate everyone's interests and also allowing people to take ownership over the work that they're doing.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure kind of an MOU or a similar document can help provide some clarity on roles and having that to refer back to if problems kind of come up.
Mm-hmm. I think also, I mean, in terms of the MOUs, the way that you kind of not so much enforce them, but make sure that, you know, everyone's working to the capacity that they said that they were going to work. That's an interesting conversation in terms of comprehensive community development and partnerships. I haven't seen a lot of initiatives that have gotten to the point where they've had to have really difficult conversations, or alternatively, you know, try to negotiate with people who might, or organizations that might not live up to their part. So that's something where I think that there's room for future research.
Interesting. So I think my last question will be, you mentioned one of the challenges is funding. But I was curious how, at least in these case studies, they were able to find the resources to pull these initiatives together and then keep them moving, if it was just kind of finding organizational dollars or what they were able to, how they were able to cobble that together.
Right. So Connect was funded by a 3-year, $3 million grant from the Department of Labor, and that was really like a catalytic grant that they started off with. That did not fund the work that the neighborhood developers did, and they funded their work as the quarterback through revenue that they made in the real estate development arm, so they cross-subsidized it.
Mm.
In terms of Sustainable Little Tokyo, it's one of the Partners in Progress projects, so they did receive funds for being a quarterback, but they also did share it with other organizations. And one of the things that they've done is they've
did we lose you?
And also that they don't have too much on their plate. They've made the initiative part of their work plans as an organization. So some of the money probably comes from the Partners in Progress, grant, but also some must also come from the general operation of the organization, although I'm not 100% sure about that. And then finally, in terms of NECAC, that was mostly work done in private time.
Interesting. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, so thank you so much for sharing your research and letting us kind of dive in a little bit. We will share the presentation with the whole task force. Before I give you back a little bit of your time, I did just want to give a quick update on our Solutions for Restoring Neighborhoods conference. So this is November 5th and 6th in New Orleans, and we are having a mobile workshop in the morning of November 5th, and Enterprise Community Partners is helping us plan that. And I think we're going to look at their Lafitte development and maybe 1 or 2 other places, but that's still being planned. But that will be a great way to see some work in action in the city. And then we have sessions on public safety and community development, property management, RAD, fair housing, and we are hoping to pull together a health and housing panel and some roundtables for more practitioner-based discussion. So if you know of folks we should reach out to participate or speak in the region, please let me know. And if you have questions or want to attend, please reach out to me as well. And I think that's it for today's meeting. Just a reminder, we will reconvene on October 7th. And actually, Enterprise Community Partners is going to be giving that presentation on their recent work on equitable transit-oriented development. So that should be a really interesting presentation, and I hope you're able to join us. And with that, I just want to thank Paul and Natalie again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said thank you for having me.
And with that, I hope everyone has a good rest of their afternoon. Thanks so much.